أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, welcome to our program. On our last program, we did a little talking about Usool E Deen. We talked about how Usool E Deen are the roots of religion. We talked about how it's, the basic software, the basic beliefs that every Muslim has to have. We went over the 5 basic beliefs. Inshallah, on today's program, we're going to try to dive into a little more of that, starting off with Tawheed. But before we do that, let's give a brief summary of Usool E Deen. Like I mentioned, Usool E Deen is the roots of religion. Usool E Deen is, the example they give is like of a tree. It's compared to like the tree of Islam, how it's, the foundation of a tree. We compare it to a tree. What does every tree have? Every tree has roots. And similarly, when we compare it to Islam, Islam has these 5 basic roots that without them, every Muslim has to have. Now, what are these 5 roots? These 5 roots are: 1, Tawheed, belief that there is only one God. 2, Adalah, belief in the justice of Allah. 3, Nabuwah, belief in the prophets sent by Allah. 4, Imamah, belief in the 12 Imams. 5, Qiyamah, belief in the Day of Judgment. Now, just going over them quickly. 1, Tawheed, belief that there is only one God. Of course, every Muslim has to believe in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can't try to associate other things with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to know that Allah is one. Allah is, the only, the one creator. 2, belief in the justice of Allah. We have to believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just. 3, belief in the prophets sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the belief that there are in the 124,000 prophets, starting with, of course, Prophet Adam alayhi salam, and ending in Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farjahum. 4, Imamah, belief in the 12 Imams. Now, in these Usool E Deen, the 5, 4, there's different, beliefs among these. Of course, the Sunnis have a different version of, the Usool E Deen, but this is just our version. We have Imamah, the Shia version, Imamah, belief in the 12 Imams, starting with Imam Ali alayhi salam, and ending in Imam Zamana, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasten his appearance. And Qiyamah, belief in the Day of Judgment, belief in the day Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will count up all our deeds, the day we will be judged on our actions, everything that we have done. Now, that was just the basic, review of Usool E Deen, which we talked about last program. Inshallah, this program, we will be talking about Tawheed and the aspects of Tawheed, belief that there is only one God. Now, starting with, where do we start with Tawheed? Tawheed, you can start with Fitra, or the proof. Now, what is Fitra? Fitra is seen as something that everyone has, that the foundation everyone has, that let's say a software built into you. Now, this Fitra is something that, when you're born, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts this in you. And it is the belief that you have that there is only in a higher power, belief in God. Now, this is something that everyone has. Every single person who was born, every single person has this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put this into us. Now, you wonder, what happens to that? How do some people, you believe in God, and then how do atheists exist, people who don't believe in God? How do, these different people, these different religions exist that don't believe in God? Atheists don't believe in a higher power. Now, I'm going to be answering that question later on in the program. But first, let's start off with a story from Imam Jaffar Assad alayhi salam. Now, the story goes that one day a man came to Imam Jaffar Assad alayhi salam. And the man said, "O son of Rasulullah, help me so that I may get to know God. I want to know how I can feel his presence since he cannot be seen." Now, this was a common question that people would ask. And of course, people still ask this today. They say, how can you believe in, how do I know if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is real? How do I know if I can't see him? And of course, it was also a common belief at the time, seeing as though these people worshipped idols at the time of Imam Jaffar Sadiq alayhi salam. Of course, people probably still do now, but they believed in these idols that because I can see it, even though they created with their own two hands, they say, at least I can see my God, I can see this idol. So that's one of the main questions. So this is what this person asked Imam Jaffar Sadiq alayhi salam. Imam Jaffar Sadiq alayhi salam said, and Imam Jaffar Sadiq at this time, he knew that this man had recently been in a boat accident. So knowing that this man had been in a boat accident, he replies, have you ever been on a boat in the middle of the sea and suddenly a furious storm arises? Wasn't the fury so great that it broke your boat and your boat slowly started sinking? There was no one around you to help you or save you? The man replied, yes, this has happened to me before. Imam Jaffar Sadiq alayhi salam responded, in that dangerous moment, did your heart feel or did you have any sense of a strong power which made you feel like someone would help you? Yes, the man replied. The Imam continued, this feeling of hope and the power that overcomes all humans in times of danger or need, the feeling of support and strength given to all, is the presence of Allah the Powerful. He is the only one in those places when there is no one else to save you. Thus you must always be hopeful to Him. He is always there and He is the one who provides safety and security for all of humanity. He is Allah the Great. Now, what was this story? The story, like we just mentioned, this shows Imam Jaffar Sadiq alayhi salam, he just proved to a person that how can I feel the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And he told him about the boat incident, that if you're on a boat in the middle of nowhere, how do you, and if something happens, how do you know that feeling that something's going to help you, or some stronger power? Now this man was an atheist, and that's what Imam Jaffar Sadiq alayhi salam used, the Fitra, that belief in everyone, that in these times of danger, in these times of something's happening, that's when it's like you can think of it as a jump start. In these times of difficulties, how you have the jump starter cable, you have to jump start your car. Unfortunately, it happens to us a lot. Our car always dies. Then you need the jumper cables, right? You need to restart the battery. So this is kind of what the fitra is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you're kind of losing sight, something happens, He'll put a situation that'll restart everything. And in this example, it was in a boat. The man was, in a boat accident, whatever happened. And, he was scared and he started to think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He started to think of a higher power, something was going to come and save him. There's a TV series that I used to watch. It was called I Shouldn't Be Alive. And in this TV series, there was a bunch of different stories about these people who were in these incredible situations. And it showed how, they got through it. There was a lot of them. There was, this guy was hiking or something, and, rocks fell on him and there was nobody around. These really difficult situations. And, the way that they survived, it's like, it's a miracle that they're alive. And there was this one story, there's this one episode that was kind of similar to this, is when the guy was in the middle of nowhere. He was going out and he wanted to escape, he wanted to go on a boat, and, he brought a decent amount of supplies, Of course, whenever these people go out, whenever you go out, they don't expect that, this is going to happen. They don't expect, I'm going to get stranded here, this is going to happen to me. So they bring a normal amount of food, normal amount of water. So this person brought his stuff, and, whatever happened to him, he wanted to get away. That's why he went to the sea. And what happened was, a huge storm came, and, all the stuff, he was on a boat or something, it all got destroyed, and he was on this small raft. And he had to stay on this small raft. And, he was in the middle of nowhere, and he didn't have any food, he didn't have any water. And the story said that the guy was there for about 70 days. He was in the middle of nowhere with no food and no water. And what happened was, it showed the story that the guy, he found some fish or something, and, at the end, he survived, right? So this is one of the situations. Like I said, the guy, he found something, he was in the middle of nowhere, this horrible situation, that place of, darkness that this man was talking about, that's when the fitra comes out. That's when the jump start comes. When you're in this horrible situation, you don't know what to do, you're in the middle of nowhere, that's when that belief comes back to you, that there is a higher power that's going to help me. When you have nothing, that's when it comes out. When people have nothing, they have nowhere else to turn. That's when, that feeling comes in you that something else can save me. And this is probably what the man went through, that, you're in this horrible situation. That's when you start to realize. And like I mentioned, at the end of the day, the guy survived. He was able to find, some fish came up to him. He was able to get the fish. And there was, I think, some water, because of course he's surrounded by the sea. It's salty. So he was able to get the water and turn it, he had a filter. And, he survived. So these are the type of situations that, like I said, when you have nothing, there's nowhere else to turn to, that's when that belief comes back, that something's going to help me, a higher power. And we know throughout the course of history, mankind has always had that sort of belief in a higher power, whatever it is. Of course, not all people, they believe in different things, but they've always had that belief in that higher power. And so, like I was mentioning, about why the question was, if we have this fitra, if we have this belief inside of us already, if everyone has it, then why do atheists exist? Why are there people who don't believe in God, even if they already have this belief? Like we said, that was inside of their system, something built within them. If you have, the example about a computer, right? Or actually, let's say an iPhone, right? Because that's the most recent device I've used. So, an iPhone has these basic things, a phone, right? The basic things. And these basic softwares are, for example, to call, to message people. These are the basic things. If you have a phone, the basic function of a phone is to call people. So that's like, the software of the phone. These are the basic things that every single thing has. And of course, with a computer, throughout viruses, we had a computer. And the computer, it ran great at first, as all computers do. But eventually, it got a virus. And when it got a virus, we weren't quick enough to act. We didn't do anything about it quick enough. And before you know it, there's 2 viruses, there's 3 viruses. Your whole computer is destroyed. And by then it's too late. Similarly, we can use this example this is the answer to the question of why, there are people who don't believe in God, even if there's this software. And that is because, of course people, you have it. But as time goes on, as you start to sin, you start to listen to other people, you start to, believe, the propaganda, and you start to believe these different things. And, in our society today, what happens? You start to lose that. It starts to get weaker and weaker. And another, let's say a phone signal, right? Or Wi-Fi signal, let's say. We already used the phone, let's use Wi-Fi. There's the Wi-Fi signal, right? And if you're right up to the Wi-Fi port, the box where you get the Wi-Fi from, it's very strong. But if you keep moving away from it, you keep going back and back and back, you go farther and farther away, the signal becomes weaker and weaker and weaker until there's nothing. You don't have any Wi-Fi. So this is the example of, the answer to the question, is because similarly to the way that if we follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's laws, we do everything He wants us to do, we read our namaz on time, we try to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we become closer to Him. Similarly, if we do the complete opposite of that and we keep sinning and sinning and sinning, and one sin comes to another, you start lying, and then you start cheating, everything's connected, all these sins, they all start to pile up. Pretty soon that fitra gets weaker and weaker and weaker till there's nothing. So what was once, of course, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you, was very strong, becomes weak, and pretty soon it's nothing. So that is why, people lose that. But of course, that's why, we have that's how we keep it strong. We have to try to do good deeds. We have to try to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that we don't, become in that position where, we have too many viruses on the computer. We don't want to get to the position, if you have doubt, something, get rid of it right away, because you don't want to get to the position where it's too late. Like I said, on a computer, you don't get rid of the viruses right away, pretty soon there's no viruses to get rid of because your computer is gone. And unfortunately, this has happened to me a lot. And all I can say is don't let it happen. I mean the computer, not the viruses on the computer. So don't let that happen. So that's why, dear brothers and sisters, we have to try to do everything we can. We have to try to become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we have to try to realize our goal so that we're on the straight path and we don't go, we keep to that straight path. And, throughout the course of our lives, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will test us. He will put these tests along our path. He will give us, whether it's with wealth or it's with poverty, whatever, He'll give us, hard tests or an easy test. We have to be prepared for these tests, and we have to realize that what matters at the end of the day, which is trying to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, trying to be successful on the Day of Judgment, trying to be, the people who have, made Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala proud of us. And with that, inshallah, the end of our program. Now, inshallah, we can't forget, inshallah, we're going to do Amma Yujib or we're going to do Allahumma kulli walika for the safety and protection of our 12th Imam. And inshallah, we are all helpers of our 12th Imam. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma kulli waliyaka al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan salawatuka alayhi wa ala abai في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وجفر. Once again, thank you for joining us on today's program. Please join us next time for another exciting episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Khuda hafiz.